Police were interrogating the roommate as a murderer while the victim was sipping cocktails on a beach, enjoying her staging. Of course, Nora Blackwell did not know about the beach or the cocktails. She only knew the claustrophobic gray of the interrogation room, the hum of the ventilation system that sounded like a dying animal, and the metallic taste of fear that had coated her tongue for the last 12 hours. Detective David Martinez sat across from her, his posture deceptively relaxed, while Detective Sarah Chun leaned against the wall, a silent, predatory shadow. They had been circling the same questions for hours, dissecting the mundane details of a Tuesday morning until the ordinary began to sound sinister. "Run us through the breakfast again, Nora," Martinez said, his voice soft, almost sympathetic. "You said she was acting normal. But people do not just vanish from normal, do they?" Nora gripped her paper cup of lukewarm water. Her hands were trembling. It was just oatmeal. She was eating oatmeal and looking at her phone. She laughed at a meme. She told me she was going to the mall in Altoona. The choice to be here in this room had been Nora's. Just 12 hours ago, she had walked into their shared apartment on Foster Avenue. The silence had hit her first. A heavy, thick silence that felt wrong. Then she saw the bowl of oatmeal, the milk congealed and yellowing, a fly buzzing lazily over the spoon. Stephanie's purse hung on the hook. Her primary phone was plugged into the wall charger, buzzing with unanswered texts. Most people would have waited. They would have assumed a quick errand, a forgotten phone, a run to the laundry room. But Nora was a scientist, a graduate student in environmental data. She dealt in patterns, and this broke every pattern Stephanie Chun had established in their 8 months of living together. Stephanie was tethered to her phone. She never left the apartment without her purse. The anomaly was too sharp. Nora had made the choice to call the State College Police Department immediately. She had chosen total transparency. She had unlocked Stephanie's phone for them. She had given them the spare keys. She had told them about Stephanie's mild anxiety, her habits, her ex-boyfriend in Philly. She had poured every ounce of information she possessed into their hands, believing that truth was the fastest route to safety. She had been wrong. "You called us at 9 p.m. Detective Chun spoke up, pushing off the wall. Her car was gone. Her keys were gone. Adults are allowed to leave Nora. Most roommates would wait 24 hours. Maybe 48. You called after 12. Why were you so sure she was not coming back?" "Because she left her purse?" Nora insisted, her voice cracking. "She does not go anywhere without her AP pen. S in the purse." "Or maybe," Chun suggested, leaning over the metal table, "you called us early to control the narrative, to look like the concerned friend before anyone could start asking where you were between 7:30 a.m. and 6 p.m. "I was at the lab," Nora cried, the injustice stinging her eyes. "There are cameras. There are witnesses." "We checked the lab logs, Nora," Martinez said, his tone cooling. "You badged out at 1:15 p.m. for a lunch break that lasted 2 hours. You said you went for a walk. No cameras on the trails behind the campus." Nora felt the air leave the room. She had gone for a walk to clear her head. She did it 3 times a week. It was her routine. But in the harsh fluorescent light of the police station, a walk alone in the woods was not a hobby. It was a window of opportunity. "We found the car, Nora." Martinez dropped the bomb quietly. Nora's head snapped up. "You found it? Is she inside?" "No." Martinez watched her pupils, looking for a flicker of guilt. It was abandoned at the Nittany Mall. Parked in the back lot. Driver's side door unlocked. Keys in the ignition. No sign of a struggle. Just like someone wiped it down and walked away. Or like someone drove it there, wiped it down and walked back to campus. Chun added, "A 4-mile hike through the woods. The same woods you were walking in." Nora stared at them, the realization crashing down on her. Her honesty had not bought her credibility. It had supplied them with the bricks to build her cage. She had opened the door to the police to save her friend, but they were not looking for a missing person anymore. They were looking at the last person to see her alive. They were looking at a suspect. The apartment, once a sanctuary of shared expenses and quiet evenings, had transformed into a museum of the missing. Police tape had been removed, but the residue of the investigation remained. Black fingerprint powder on the door frames, the displacement of furniture, the lingering scent of strangers. Nora could not sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Detective Chana's sneer. You wanted to control the narrative. The fall from concerned citizen to person of interest had been rapid and brutal. 2 days after the interrogation, the story leaked to the press. They did not use her name initially, referring to her only as the roommate. But in a college town, anonymity was a myth. The whispers started in the hallways of the Earth Sciences building. Then came the side glances in the cafeteria. Then, the reporters camped out on the sidewalk of Foster Avenue. Nora tried to maintain her routine, but the pressure was dismantling her mind. She needed to prove she was innocent. She needed to find Stephanie. Driven by a manic energy, Nora began her own search. She put on latex gloves she stole from her lab and entered Stephanie's bedroom. The police had tossed it, but they had been looking for signs of violence. Blood, struggles, a weapon. They had not been looking for secrets. They assumed the violence had happened elsewhere, likely by Nora's hand. Nora tore the room apart. She pulled books off shelves, checked pockets of hanging coats, felt along the lining of the mattress. She found it taped to the underside of the bottom drawer of the nightstand. It was a burner phone, an old flip model, and a thick white envelope. Nora's heart hammered against her ribs as she sat on the floor, peeling the tape away. Inside the envelope was cash. Stacks of it. Hundreds and fifties, banded together with rubber bands. It had to be at least $10,000. Nora opened the flip phone. It was powered off, but she found a charger cord in her own junk drawer that fit. When the screen flickered to life, she saw a single contact saved as M. The message history was sparse, cryptic. November 1st, package ready. November 3rd, drop clear. Tuesday is the day. November 7th, done. Gone. November 7th. The day Stephanie vanished. Oh my God! Nora whispered. She was not kidnapped. She was running something. Relief flooded her. This was the proof. Stephanie was involved in something illegal, drugs, smuggling, money laundering, and she had bolted. The done. Gone. Message was sent at 9:15 a.m., right before the car was abandoned. Nora grabbed the phone and the cash, shoved them into her bag, and drove straight to the station. She did not call her lawyer. She was too excited. She thought this would end the nightmare. She thought this was her ticket out of the suspect chair. She asked for Detective Martinez. She laid the money and the phone on the table, breathless. I found this, she said, her eyes wide. Hidden in her room. Look at the texts. She planned this. She had a drop on Tuesday. She left on purpose. Martinez stared at the cash. He did not look relieved. He put on a pair of blue nitrile gloves and picked up a stack of bills. He riffled through them slowly. Then he looked at the phone. You found this? Martinez asked, his voice devoid of warmth. We searched that room, Nora, top to bottom. It was taped under the drawer. You missed it, Nora said, her smile faltering. Or, Chen walked into the room, snapping her own gloves on. It was not there when we looked. What? Nora stepped back. $10,000. Chun mused. That's a lot of motive, Nora. Maybe you did not kill her because you were jealous. Maybe you killed her because you found her stash. Maybe she caught you stealing it. No! Nora screamed, the sound raw in the small room. I brought it to you. Why would I bring it to you if I stole it? To sell the story that she ran away, Martinez said, bagging the evidence. Look, she is a criminal, she fled. That's a good pivot. But here's the problem. We ran Stephanie's financials. Just clean. No debts, no weird deposits. This money, that's untraceable. And now your fingerprints are all over it. Nora backed into the door, her hands shaking uncontrollably. She had handed them the weapon to execute her. Every attempt to struggle only tightened the noose. Do not leave town, Nora, Martinez said, his eyes hard. We re-waiting on a warrant for a luminol sweep of your bathroom. We think that S where you cleaned up. The spiral deepened. The local news was now openly speculating about Nora S. involvement. A Justice for Stephanie Facebook group had formed, and the comments were a cesspool of hatred directed at the jealous, intellectual roommate. Nora hired Patricia Hernandez, a criminal defense attorney who cost more than Nora's entire tuition. Hernandez was sharp, but even she looked worried. The police were building a circumstantial case that was becoming terrifyingly plausible. They had the time gap. They had the motive, the cash. They had the opportunity. But Nora could not stop digging. The M in the phone. That was the key. She hacked into Stephanie's laptop. It took her 3 days of guessing passwords until she tried the name of Stephanie's childhood dog, which she remembered from a drunken story swap months ago. Buster 89. Inside, the browser history was wiped, but the cloud photos were intact. Nora scrolled through hundreds of selfies, food pics, and lab notes. Then she found a folder nested deep in the system files, labeled Project Blue. It was not science. It was screenshots of a dating profile. Stephanie had a profile on an app called Hush, used for discreet affairs. Her username was Steph Secret, and in her messages there was a long, intense thread with a user named Marcus Builder. Nora read the messages, her stomach churning. They were not just romantic. They were obsessive. Marcus was aggressive. He demanded to see her. He talked about fixing her situation. On November 5th, he wrote, "If you do not leave with me on Tuesday, I am coming to get you. I do not care about your roommate. LL deal with her too. I found him." Nora sobbed into the phone to Hernandez. "His name is Marcus. He threatened us. He threatened me." This was it. The twist. The real killer. Hernandez took the information to the district attorney. The police were forced to investigate. They traced the IP address of Marcus Builder. They found him Marcus Hendricks, a construction foreman in Belafonte. For 24 hours, Nora felt a glimmer of hope. The police raided Hendricks' house. The news vans moved from Nora's apartment to his lawn. Felt like victory. Felt like justice. Then came the phone call from Hernandez. "Nora, sit down." "Did they charge him?" Nora asked, gripping the edge of her desk. "Marcus Hendricks was in county lockup on November 7th, Hernandez said, her voice flat. "He got picked up for a DUI on the 6th and was not released until the 8th. There is video footage of him in a holding cell during the entire time Stephanie disappeared." Nora's vision blurred. "But the messages, the police think you spoofed the account," Hernandez said, "or that Stephanie was talking to a catfish. Either way, Marcus is airtight. And now the DA is furious. They think you pointed them at an innocent man to waste their time." "I did not. They refiling charges, Nora," Hernandez said quietly. "First-degree murder and obstruction of justice. They coming for you tomorrow morning. I am trying to negotiate a surrender, but you need to prepare yourself." Nora dropped the phone. The silence of the apartment roared back, louder than ever. She was done. Every move she had made to find the truth had only painted her as a manipulative sociopath. She was going to prison for the rest of her life for a crime that did not happen, involving a body that did not exist. She sat on the floor of the living room, staring at the spot where Stephanie used to do yoga. She felt a deep, dark hollow opening up inside her. She was the perfect patsy. Then her laptop dinged. It was a soft, innocuous sound. A standard email notification. Nora did not move for a long time. She was waiting for the sirens. She was waiting for the pounding on the door. But the silence stretched on, and the little blue light on her laptop kept blinking. She dragged herself over to the computer. She opened her student email. The sender was anonymous 1107@protonmail.com. Subject: Greetings from Paradise. Nora clicked it. The image downloaded slowly on the apartment's Wi-Fi. Filled the screen. It was high resolution, vivid colors, a white sand beach, turquoise water, and a palm tree leaning precariously over the surf. And there, in the center of the frame, holding a condensation-slicked glass with a pink umbrella, was Stephanie. She was not dead. She was not bound in a basement. She was tanned. She was wearing sunglasses Nora had never seen before. She was smiling. A sharp, triumphant smile that showed teeth. In her other hand, she held a copy of the Miami Herald. The date on the masthead was unmistakably today's date. February 14th, 2018. Nora stared at the screen. She did not breathe. She did not blink. The world tilted on its axis. She looked at the metadata. The GPS coordinates were embedded. The Cayman Islands. A laugh bubbled up in Nora's throat. A jagged, hysterical sound that hurt her chest. Stephanie had not been murdered. She had not been kidnapped by Marcus. Stephanie had embezzled. The pieces clicked together with the violence of a car crash. The lab technician job with access to expensive equipment. The cash. The burner phone. The M was not Marcus. It was money. Or a mule. The Marcus profile was a decoy Stephanie had planted herself, knowing Nora would find it if she dug deep enough, knowing it would lead to a dead end that would destroy Nora's credibility. Everything, the abandoned car, the purse, the AP pen, she must have had a spare, was theater. Stephanie needed a disappearance that looked like a murder. She needed a body count of 0 but a suspect count of 1. She needed the police to be so focused on roasting Nora Blackwell that they would not look at the university accounts or the offshore transfers until she was ghosted into a non-extradition country. Nora was the smoke screen. Nora was the distraction. Nora forwarded the email to Hernandez. Then she forwarded it to Detective Martinez. Then she forwarded it to the State College Gazette. 10 minutes later, Martinez called. Nora did not answer. She just sat there, looking at Stephanie's smiling face. The fallout was swift. The charges were dropped before the sun came up. The photo was authenticated. The embarrassment of the State College Police Department was national news. The manhunt for Stephanie Chun began, but everyone knew it was too late. She was gone. Nora packed her boxes 2 days later. She left the furniture. She left the oatmeal bowl, which she had finally washed but left on the counter. As she loaded her car, Detective Martinez pulled up to the curb. He looked 10 years older. He did not get out of the car. He just rolled down the window. Nora, he said. He looked like he wanted to apologize, but did not know the words. We'll find her. Nora paused, holding a box of books. She looked at the man who had almost sent her to prison for life because it was easier than doing the math. No, you were not, Nora said, her voice ice cold. She's smarter than you. And she was certainly smarter than me. She got into her car and slammed the door. As she drove away from Foster Avenue, watching the apartment building shrink in her rearview mirror, she did not feel relief. She felt a hard, calcified knot in her chest where her trust used to be. She thought of Stephanie sipping that cocktail, looking at the camera. Stephanie had known exactly what she was doing. She had known Nora would call the police immediately. She had known Nora would be honest. She had banked on Nora's goodness to cover her own greed. Nora turned onto the highway, merging into traffic. She was not a suspect anymore. She was not a prisoner. But as she drove toward a future that felt gray and uncertain, she realized the cruelest truth of all. The only reason she was free was because the villain had decided to let her live. The victim had won. And Nora had to live with the fact that for 8 months, she had slept 3 feet away from a monster who could ruin a life without ever raising a hand.